Hey, welcome to our Mochi Podcast, the only podcast rated R for Robin. Today, my guest is Xiaowei Wang. She is an author of the book Blockchain Chicken Farm, which is a New York Times Editor's Choice novel, right? Yeah,
Yes.
and you also are the creative director for
Logic
Logic
magazine.
Magazine.
Yeah.
Dope. Say hi. How's it going?
How are you?
I am good. Mildly hungover, but it's late enough in the day that I think I'm definitely feeling much better.
Oh, good. Good.
Okay, so in your bio, I'm gonna start with like this one thing that I thought was interesting. You do tarot card readings?
I do. I had to put it on pause for a little bit because I think I was feeling like pretty drained over the past few months, but yeah, I do tarot. I've been really, I guess not like obsessed with tarot since high school, which is a long time
Hmm.
ago, but definitely like it's been part of my life in some way.
So is it like a do you believe in like the destiny, fate, like predictive value in it, or is it just like a fun like comic book kind of like piecing together the logic of what these pictures are telling you?
Yeah, I think it's for me, it's a spiritual
Hmm.
practice. So I always say that I read like every reader has very different cosmologies. There's definitely readers that I've gone to who are like, you will meet the true love of your life like in this
Hmm.
year and then this thing will happen. I'm just like, okay, bye. But I feel like for me it's coming out of pushing against like the linearity of like Western modernity
Hmm.
time, and also a way to just like think through the different cycles that not just happen in life generally, but is like part of this
What
rhythm that we all are
what
part of.
tradition does tarot reading like origin come out of? Is it like a is it like a Wiccan or like a Celtic thing?
It's actually really interesting. It's like a mashup. It's pretty ancient, mashup of all different things, like across like Asia, um, Europe, as well as like
Hmm.
Arabic regions, Arabic speaking regions. And yeah, and so they like produce these
So
cards that have hidden
do
symbols
you
in
have to like
them.
follow a rule set, like a specific rule set? Do you have to follow like the Arab rule set for like reading predict or interpreting the cards, or do you have to follow like the Asian version of it?
So everyone puts their own spin on
Hmm.
it. I actually, so do you know Hodorowski, Alejandro Hodorowski, the like filmmaker?
Nope, no clue.
Yeah, extremely trippy uh, filmmaker, Spanish filmmaker, and he got really into tarot, and he actually has this
Hmm.
book. Um,
The Way of Tarot.
and and so part of the idea is like when you're first starting off, it's kind of like this card means
Hmm.
this, but then it's expected that you develop this consistent practice with them to really like meditate on the
Hmm.
cards, as a kind of
Is it like a
spiritual.
daily thing that you do? Is it a weekly thing?
I try to do it daily. I try to do it daily and then do my daily
Can,
sit as
can you
well.
like get a reading and then like this one sucks? I'm gonna do another one because fuck, you know, fuck that first one. Redo.
No, no. I mean, I think it's about that like
Is that cheating?
that Buddhist. Well, it's about that like that's the
Uh
practice,
huh.
right? Is like you get a card and you're like, "Oh no, like I'm not ready to face this." But that's the practice, is to move towards that discomfort
Hmm.
and difficulty and examine it.
How did you originally get into it? You mentioned doing it in high school.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just like, having a very like I feel like in high school is like the artsy queer
Hmm.
kids were my crew, and we were all into like tarot and like alternative practices, I
Hmm.
guess.
What other
Yeah.
things would you say is kind of in your interests that are like similar, I guess, in nature? What would you kind of like draw parallels between like your interest in tarot and like, because now you do you like curate and do community organizing for like art pieces and for writing. Where could you like really kind of draw these parallels, I guess, with like the spiritual practice of tarot reading?
Yeah, I mean, I think the spiritual practice of tarot reading is all about like really stitching together and examining what is this like, I don't want to say like universal divine, but just
Hmm.
this thing like we're all tapping into. So there's this tarot card, the
Hmm.
Magician, that I really love. I'll find it in my deck so I can show
Have you always
you.
used the same deck, or have you like updated it?
I've updated
Hmm.
it. I think there's like some decks. I mean, they all have like such a rich history. So the Hodorowski deck, he actually worked really long and hard to like restore
Hmm.
it to like all these colors have meaning. So this is the Hodorowski
Hmm.
deck. It's like very
Do you like buy? Do
I don't know. There's
you
just
buy these
like
online? Do you is there like a mystical store or something?
I live in the Bay Area, so there's like a
Oh,
million
okay. Yeah, makes sense.
stores like this. Yeah, so this is like the Tower card in the Hodorowski deck. Oh no. Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Um, and but actually the whole thing, there's this book by Alexander Chi. Do you know the
Mm-mm.
author? Um, uh, Queer Korean American author. He wrote this
Queerian.
really love
Got it.
Queerian. Oh my God, I like that. Oh, I'm gonna tell all my friends that. That's really
Gotta
good.
tell all my Queerian
Um,
friends. Next time we go for a mukbang.
oh my God. This is good. This is why you're the
Yeah,
host of
man.
this show.
That's what's up.
You got all the talents.
Yeah, I think in my mind with
But
like being interested in the cards, like I played a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh. I imagine it was just like, oh, you're trying to pull like the shiny magician or like an ultra rare death card or something. I don't know. Does each deck have to have like a certain number of every single card? Is there, do you like do you construct it out of your own preferences, or does it like they all have to have the same basic structure?
they all have a similar structure. So there's 22 of the major arcana. So this is the magician card, and it is a named card. So the magician is number one. Um, and so there's 22 of these major arcana named
Mhm.
cards. Then there's other cards that are like from the suits. So this is four of swords, and similar to like playing cards, there's swords, cups, pentacles, and wands. And each of those represent a different energy. And the idea with the major arcana is they like represent bigger um, these bigger forces that is part of like the cycle of the seasons of this kind of universal divine that people talk about. Yeah, and the magician card is about, I think, like embodies very much like artists
Mhm.
who um, the position of the magician is like a lightning bolt channeling and connecting sky and ground.
I'm just hearing
And
him say like it's Leviosa, not Leviosa.
I mean, it is very much that, right? Like, yeah, like the floating, the
Mhm.
chanting, the mantras, whatever you need to do to get into that state of channeling.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. So, are you otherwise religious?
I mean, I am, I guess, Buddhist, whatever that means these
Uh huh.
days,
So,
right?
is it like a family thing,
Um,
or is it like an actual? So, like Gael Blanchiment. I don't know if you know him. He's going to be a guest later on. I think I'm going to be talking with him next week. He's like an actual Buddhist monk.
Oh my
So
God.
like I don't know, everybody's got their own like how spicy do you like your hot sauce? How religious do you like your Buddhists?
I mean, I guess I'm not religious enough where I don't eat hot sauce and like also avoid garlic because that's what you're supposed to do, right?
I have
If
no
you're a
idea.
good
I
Buddhist.
only know a little bit about like the text. I kind of know a little bit about the lore, but I honestly don't know too much about like the requirements or the rules or you know.
Yeah, it's like it's weird out here in the Bay Area because it's like everyone a lot of people just kind of have like Tibetan prayer flags and you're like, what does this really mean to
Mhm,
you, right? Um, and then people kind of take like certain elements of Buddhism and forget the
mhm.
rest, but I don't know. I guess insofar as like where I am along that path. I'm definitely not like devout or anything, but I do like get up and I chant from this Plum Village chanting and
You got
recitation
your
book.
entire library in front of you, don't you?
Well, I am
Oh, nice.
in a weird corner. Yeah.
So like, did you grow up in the States? Are you from California?
No. I was born in China. Hung out with my
Where in
grandma
China?
for like Tianjin.
Oh, is that up north?
Yeah. Yeah. Did you teach English?
Yeah, I was.
Where did you
Yeah,
teach?
I taught English in Shunda in the
Oh,
in Guangdong. Yeah,
wow. That's a great place to be instead
the
of
food was
like,
pretty fucking dope, and I got to learn some Wing Chun and what's it called? It's um I, off the top of my head, I can't remember what the style is called, but it was fascinating to learn about. Like, you know the Guanxi like wolf soldiers? Yeah,
mm-hmm,
the my
mm-hmm.
teacher was like he's from that province, and he's like one of the few people who still like practice that martial arts. And apparently it's like one of the historical ancestors of like Muay Thai, which I had no idea about. Yeah.
Whoa. Huh. I didn't know that. That's also like that's so cool and also what a wonderful place to land for like English teaching instead of like middle of nowhere
I
Anhui.
was honestly hoping to be so the school I was listed to be going to was Foshan, and I thought it was going to be like Foshan proper, but it was Shunda, which apparently had been annexed recently by and become part of like the Foshan area. I was like hoping to like learn Hungar,
Mm.
because that's I got to go to like the ancestral home of Wang Fei Hung, which was super dope.
Oh my God,
Yeah, man.
legend. Uh,
Yeah, it was always funny to me because like part of my interest in like going to China, just like so much of my like my upbringing in the States, uh, was like tied to like Jackie Chan movies, Bruce Lee movies, because there weren't many other like Asian role models that you know people that we could look up to, and so like there weren't really like Filipino celebrities that I could grow up looking at. And so just any Asian that I saw in movies, and like the most prominent ones were like Jet Li, Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, Donnie Yen.
mm,
Uh,
mm.
and so I was always just like fascinated with kung fu, like, and teaching was the easiest way to get there.
I love that. Did you practice at all when you were in China, like with a guru?
uh, I did. So I had a teacher teach me Wing Chun for almost 3 years. It was a different Wing Chun from like the from Yip Man's style, but like I don't know, it was still fun. I got to play with like the wooden dummy and shit. Uh, I got to like use a sword a little bit, which was nice.
Oh my God, that's awesome. Um,
I think that's.
do you still? Hmm?
Sorry, go on.
Do you still talk to your guru?
Um,
Or are you like a non-guru person? Some people are like really into their gurus.
uh, so he's Shifu. But like I haven't talked to him like in a while. I tell him like Happy Chinese New Year. I still have
Mhm.
WeChat installed on my phone. I should probably get it off because the Chinese government's probably still watching me. Um,
What government is not watching
yeah,
you?
but WeChat is like specifically if like Facebook was just straight owned by the government or like it was owned by the NSA or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
But the utility of WeChat is unbelievable. Like uh coming back to the States after like living in China and like having everything in WeChat and just like being able to pay with WeChat,
Mhm.
being like every vendor accepting it was just so like awesome. And like going to the States, like some places have Google Pay, some places have Apple Pay, and it really felt like taking steps backwards technology wise, and like actually still paying with cash
Mhm.
was like weird to me again. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Wait, so when did you leave China?
Um, August 2 years ago.
Oh, wow, that's so
Yep.
recent.
And now I'm in Ukraine.
Did you go straight from China to
No, I went
Ukraine?
from China to the U.S. One of my friends was having a wedding, and I wanted to be there because he's funny. Uh, and then from there, went to Ukraine. Stayed in my
Hmm.
wife's hometown for a few months before moving to Lviv.
Got it. Did y'all get married in the US or
We got
in?
married in Hong Kong.
Oh my
Yeah.
God,
Oh,
amazing place to get married.
it was
Congrats.
super dope. Also, so working in Shunda because it like you can take the ferry to get to Hong Kong. It's only like 2 or 3 hours. It only costs like $20, and just you can just spend a weekend in Hong Kong and just take a ferry back.
Oh my God. What was your Hong Kong wedding like? That's
Uh,
a
it was
beautiful
no,
place.
it was very minimalist. We like just went to like the registry place. My brother got to come and attend, which was awesome. But like we were just like signing papers, and we didn't know if at like some point the registry person's gonna be like, okay, cool, congratulations, you're married. uh, they did like a small ceremony, and like where we're like signing papers, and then like you kind of you read the script of like, oh yeah, and then now you're legally married. But just the process of filling out the papers to go get married, we had no idea when they were just going to like, "Oh, congratulations."
Oh.
But I sang a song in Ukrainian to my wife. Uh,
Oh my God, this is so
it was
touching.
it was hard to learn. I spent like a month or two like just trying to memorize the lyrics. I fucked it up still, but she liked it, and it was fun.
Oh, that's so sweet.
And it was in Simshatsui.
Wow. Wow. Did you guys go out for dinner after or eat
Um,
after?
we rented a bar or like an after party a few days later with like coworkers and friends. But like the day of, and I think like the day before, we got Din Tai Fung.
Oh my
Got some
God.
got some Xiaolong Baos.
Wow. Wow. That is sounds like a proper union. Best kind.
Yes,
Have
and no
you, I
churches
feel
involved.
like,
Thank fuck.
I know, oh my God, there's so many. I feel like I'm at the point where I like want to like compile a list of like all the weddings I've been to,
Mhm.
like written Yelp style or something.
Have you been to a lot of weddings?
Uh, well, because I'm 34, and so I feel like all my friends have like had some kind of
Mhm.
like wedding type thing. And some of them have been like some have been more awkward than
Mhm.
others, and then others have been like so much fun.
What
And
was
just like
what
a
was the
real
most
party.
awkward?
The most awkward one was like it was like clear that it was like for the
Mhm.
parents, you know? Um and uh it was like me and one other non-white person were just like at a table together, and we're like,
Yeah,
these white people are
I had that
crazy.
experience at from my friend that I went back to go see his wedding. It was like it was me and a couple like fraternity brothers sitting at this table, and like this is the only table that had any brown people at the table, like in the room. And the drink they had like a drink special, an open bar. It was called the White England. Uh,
Oh
the
my
one black person in the
God.
building was one of the servers. I felt like really out of place. Like they had like a fancy like spread for like bread and stuff, and like they had these like little balls, and I thought it was cheese. Turned out it was just butter. Pop one in my mouth, and like I'm
Uh,
classy. I don't know if I've stated that earlier, but I'm fine wine really.
well, I just don't know why you need to put butter into balls, you
Yeah,
know? Just
I mean it's
no,
an
there's
aesthetic thing.
no
It's the same thing
need.
of like folding a handkerchief into like a crane. People like that shit.
I guess old people like that shit. I don't know.
Yeah, sorry. So
Yeah.
like you were born in China in Tianjin, did you say?
Oh yeah. Now we have to go back to talking about me.
Yeah, thank you for the interview. I'm glad to have come on.
I'm a Scorpio. I don't like talking about myself or telling people anything about me.
My brother mentioned
Um,
he said that you very much have that like that deep Scorpio energy of not wanting to reveal anything unless it's like pulled out of you with forceps and a wrench.
yep. So, anyways, ended up in the US.
When did you move to the States?
When I was 4. So my parents were here already and they picked me up from the airport. And I was like, who are you people?
Oh, so
I want to
you were
go
staying
home.
with your grandma while they were already in the States. Ah, I
Yeah,
see.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so grew up in Somerville, which is outside of
Hmm.
Boston.
Do you speak
Um,
Mandarin?
I do,
Nice.
yes.
Did you have to learn it
Um,
like after the fact, or was it like organic because of being raised by your grandma?
yeah, my grandma eventually moved to the
Hmm.
U.S. Because my parents were working, and so she watched me and my sister.
Can you
And
read?
yeah, yes, although I feel like very badly,
Hmm.
like especially because in the past year I haven't like gone back. I always call it gone back home, but it's really just my aunt's house in Guangzhou.
Are you American citizen or are you still a Chinese citizen?
I'm an American
Uh-huh.
citizen now. Yeah, yeah, got citizenship before
Hmm.
college. Yeah, so yeah, then have been living out here in the Bay Area for almost 10 years
Hmm.
and lived a bunch of other places before.
Moved around a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely did like the New York thing that everyone does, right? When they're like, I'm 20 something, I'm gonna move to New York. And pretty much, pretty
Into
much.
clubbing?
Um, I there was a period of my life where I would like stay out really late with friends. Maybe, yeah, don't know. There was this place I was living in Chinatown,
Hmm.
um,
In New York or in
and
California?
in New
Uh-huh.
York. So I was living in Chinatown, and of course, there's all the like Lower East Side bars, but there was this one place called the Box, which had like burlesque shows and like was
Ooh.
open until I mean, until like 8 in the morning, and was just kind of it was like a real vibe and a
I
scene.
gotta check out a burlesque show.
I highly encourage you to. I mean, it's an art,
Hmm.
really. It's cool to see just like all the like strategies and tactics that have clearly been passed down over like the years,
I
right? And
have
then the
no idea
different
what you could possibly be referring to, and I am so intrigued. The strategies of burlesquing, or I don't know what you would call it. So it's like it's a strip show essentially.
um Yes, but there's like a story.
Uh-huh.
Not that like some like,
Was it like opera with nudity and minus
uh
singing, I guess?
because sometimes people do magic tricks, like there's like a theme. It's like I mean, it's not, I think it really also pushes the boundaries of like what we think as sexy, right? There's
Hmm.
like goth burlesque. Um I mean, it's kind of like, have you been to like a drag show?
I have seen it. Yeah, I've been to a drag show in my university.
Yeah, so it's like same way people like push
Hmm.
drag to a level of performance, and I mean, not to get too like annoyingly critical theory about it, but I think it also questions.
No,
I
go
think
for it. Go for
burlesque
it.
can
I
also
like
like.
the whole like theory and like discussion about sexuality stuff. We got
Yeah.
into a lot of discussions about that at my university. I was in a particularly weird fraternity. We had like a pretty strong LGBT Q plus representation. A few of my fraternity brothers have transitioned.
Mm,
We also had a trans member, uh, trans male.
mm.
It was a very interesting experience going from like high school. There were a few gay kids, but people didn't really try to address it too much. To going to college, where one of the fraternity brothers ended up marrying another one of the fraternity brothers. So there's a lot of this weird stuff going on.
Did it make you question things about yourself?
Um, Kind of, sorta. Like it was in college that I found out that I was straight.
Oh, I love that. Oh my
Well,
God, that's
that I
like
confirmed to
great.
myself, just because, like, you. I don't know how much you would know about it, but like, just I spent so much time, or guys spent a lot of time in high school. Like, oh, I need to affirm my masculinity. I need to affirm my
Hmm.
sexual dominance. Uh, but I came across like a lot of people, one just as a general weirdo, and like, I don't know, maybe I'm bisexual or something. But then I found
Hmm.
out I was straight. It was kind of a weird experience. Mom, Dad, I'm straight.
I I love that you entered it like so openly, like, that you're like, oh, I'm still open, and then okay, I guess I am straight. Like that was your what you arrived at.
I
It's really
I like
sweet.
to try to be like to approach new things as open minded as I can. Um,
Mm.
Even if it like one, I think it's like hard to make me super super uncomfortable. I think I've got a very high threshold for that. Um, so like I'm usually able to just kind of roll with the punches and like, okay, I guess I'm not into dick. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's one of those things where like sexuality is just like this constant
Spectrum.
changing thing for different
Mhm.
people depending on who you are. Yeah. Yeah.
So the book you wrote, blockchain chicken farm, where where's that where's the book kind of like based on what? Because it's about like technology in parts of like rural China, and it's like the kind of the I guess like the dissonance in our thought of like how like backwards uh rural people would be, and can
Hmm.
you tell me a little bit about like the book and your experience like writing it?
Yeah. Um, so yeah, it takes place in rural China. And I think for me, it was this like weird process of like the book actually started off with me wanting to like make a recipe zine,
Hmm.
specifically around vinegar. And as you know, like all the
Oh yeah.
different vinegars that are available in
I was
China.
super confused the first time I saw like the brown vinegar. I thought it was like this is soy sauce, and I just poured it on this. Like, no,
Oh
that's
no!
not right.
Oh, classic mistake. You can never tell, and then it's like too
Yeah,
late.
I learned to trust my nose a little bit more for things.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes they label them too,
Yeah, but I
so
can't fucking read
that
Chinese.
helps. Um, but yeah, it was a long process. I think it was also just like a really lovely chance to go to rural areas throughout China and spend a lot of time there. Yeah, it's I don't know. I still
So again, what place is it focused on, or was it
oh so
a lot of different places?
Guizhou.
Huizhou?
Yeah,
Huizhou,
Guizhou
okay.
was a big place. Yeah, and then some places in the north, like Shandong. Um, yeah, looking at everything from like e-commerce
Hmm.
villages to this village making chickens that were on the blockchain.
Hmm.
Um, I've definitely one thing I always have to caveat this with is like the book is like extremely leftist, which I think some people who are like interested in
Hmm.
tech, they like read it and they're like, this is some socialist trash. I hate
It's
this.
China. Get used to
And
it.
but no, even just like my political
Hmm.
position, you know, because I think they're like, oh, blockchain, you must be like a libertarian free market crypto
Hmm.
person, and they get really excited, and then they're disappointed when I'm not.
I think it's a big thing to me. The to me, like I'm not a libertarian. I'm very much also like leaning left, but I lean towards like a philosophy of selfish altruism, where doing things in my best interest means it is in my best interest and will benefit me the best if people around me are also taken care of and they're also brought up, because like education goes up, right? We have
Hmm.
less like shitty people outside. We've got better quality roads, we got better food, we have like more people that we can like discuss things with. You have better competition, and also like kind of spurs you to be better.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's a very pragmatic and real stance to take. I wouldn't call that selfish,
I mean,
but
I call it that because to a degree, I feel like being selfish is just part of human nature in a lot of ways.
oh, interesting.
And
Why do you say that?
um because most people just kind of operate out of either most people will either operate out of fear or out of like desire. So people fear being hungry, people fear death, people fear uh not having control of their lives. And so in like a lot of therapy, people are just trying to like overturn their tendencies towards some of their like more negative base reactions. um
Mm,
and I think just the need to satisfy like your base needs, and that it just varies so radically different for everybody. It's just always that.
mm.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling and I'm losing my own train of thought.
No, I mean, I guess how much of that do you think is like structural though, right? Is like we have I mean, even under feudalism,
Hmm.
but like especially capitalism, like been subjected to this like broader system in which we're like conditioned to think under scarcity, right? With like occasional pockets of like
Hmm.
I think, you know, communes or like
Hmm.
communities where they're like, actually, we're going to push against this
I mean, I
scarcity
definitely
narrative.
recognize that there is very much also the human tendency towards like social function. People need other people, um, but at the same time, we are also always constantly obsessed with the idea of self and personal like self preservation. Um,
Mm,
to a degree, everybody kind of sees themselves as the entire world, even though they also recognize that they're just one out of, even if they do or don't recognize that they're like one out of billions.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I mean, I guess that feels like also heightened under like American culture,
Mm.
right? The like rugged
Oh yeah,
individualism thing and just, yeah,
catch
the entire
bootstraps. You have to
culture.
pay me for them
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it does feel like, I don't know, so much of it is also like this the American
Mhm.
culture too.
How did you research the different locations in your book?
Mm, through like one side, which is like a lot of the kind of typical research process that I think folks do, which is just like the stuff like reading about stuff
Did you like
online.
live in the place in any of the locations, or?
So I didn't live in any of those locations. I did like stay there for, long periods of
Hmm.
time. It was also through friends of friends. If they're, a friend of a friend knows of this like organic rice cooperative
Hmm.
in Guangzhou that I should go check out. So, um, yeah, I mean, overall, I think like everyone, it was like an interesting interaction process too, because a lot of the farmers were like, "You're from the US. Wow. Why are you here? There's nothing to see here." And I'm like, "No, this is really cool what you're doing." And they're like, "You're kind of not that smart if that's what you think." I was like, "Okay, thanks, uncle."
I mean, I feel like we have that kind of that sense of like you think our lives are small, and that really just shows how short-sighted you are. We do that in the States too. Like people like who live in the country always have unique kind of insights, and
Hmm.
they hate also being looked down on or talked down to.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think is I mean, it's been interesting, even just like doing book talks, which unfortunately have all been virtual,
Mhm.
but like I get a lot of questions from people who are from mainland China, and there's all these like, as there's all this like kind of um, if you're a city person in China, there's all this talk of like nongmian, so like the
Uh-huh.
peasant, and how they're like a little bit like they're like less educated, like,
Yeah, there is
they
very much
really
that.
don't have
There's a lot
manners.
of that
Yeah.
social like hierarchy.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like as someone who's not, who's Chinese American, like I see that dynamic and can point it out, but then there's other people who are like, Chinese
Mhm.
and they're like still in that kind of circuit of reasoning.
You mentioned you have a sister. Uh, when you would have been born, it was still one-child policy, right?
Yeah, she was born in the US.
Gotcha.
She's 6 years younger than
Hmm.
me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty when they like loosened it, that was like a pretty big deal. But I remember in China, it was a very interesting point to see like uh every guy is trying to like find people to date. All of the girls like kind of have the pick of their litter. Uh,
Oh yeah.
and like yeah, absolutely, you fucking deserve to be able to pick whoever the fuck you want and say no to whoever you want. Like if for like generations, like women were like little baby girls were being like thrown out or sold. Like
Yep.
now that you're an adult and you have like the right to do whatever you want, absolutely be as fucking critical and as like demanding as possible. They fucking deserve it.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, I hear about how my parents met, and I'm just like,
Mhm.
this sounds terrible for
Mhm.
women. I don't know if it was like that for your parents, but my parents, like my mom, maybe like dated quote
Mhm.
unquote my dad for like a month or two, and then it was like, all right, get
Was there like an
married.
arranged marriage or something?
I mean, I don't think like it was an arranged marriage, like, people who never meet and all these things, but it is like very much the like matchmaker.
Mhm.
Like some auntie is like, you two should meet and, hope that it works out. And then like, you know, do not have sex before marriage. So I guess you guys are getting
Mhm.
married. And it's very like pragmatic, right? It's like you two should meet because you're of the same social class and kind of are the same level of attractiveness based on our societal standard of
You guys are both
attractiveness.
around like sevens, sixes, you know?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And and like she knows how to cook and he's like well educated, and so like
Mhm.
perfect match. Now just get married and have children and do the thing that you're supposed to do,
Yeah, it's
right?
very much like a you're this is the destiny of what your life is supposed to be. Do it.
Yeah, yeah, and you have children for the like to like have
Hmm.
grandparents, right? And make them happy because then they have something to do.
Hmm. keeps them from going crazy.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
said both of your parents were working in the States.
Hmm.
Interesting. Well,
Yeah.
how did they like also choose to move to the States? Because I know like nowadays it's like it's a big deal for like people to be able to like uh to emigrate from China and be able to like start lives elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, my dad ended up in the US because he was a student at the time. And that, and then like he came right like after Tiananmen. And so during that time, there was like a big rush of like, oh, if you're a Chinese
Hmm.
student, we will give you like American visas and green
Oh
cards
wow.
because of, yeah. So there was like that. It was called the open door
Mm-hmm.
period. And yeah, so there was that time period. And my mom came as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also like just a weird thing to look at the how immigration has like been made easy, or now it's like significantly harder for like anybody to become an American citizen. Uh, and they're so choosy about like your background and are you going to be a burden on society? But like for the longest time, they were just letting literally anybody like come into the country and like, oh yeah, you go ahead, start like the 30th pizza chain on this block, open your laundromats.
Yeah, I mean, I'm extremely cynical about American immigration policy, and I think it all was really based on like what American imperialism
Hmm.
wanted at the time, especially in the like cold like Cold War and post Cold
Hmm.
War era, right? Where it's like also thinking about all these other countries across the global
Hmm.
south and trying to like have better relations with them so that they like don't turn towards communism. So like of course like come to the US. The US is the greatest and democratic. Um, so yeah, but I feel like it's been the immigration history. Sorry, I'm like a immigration history
Yeah,
nerd.
I was actually going to ask you like what kind of like flags do you generally fly for yourself? Like I'd say I'm very like left leaning, like economic wise, I'm a feminist, like video games. I don't know what kind of flags do you usually kind of present for yourself?
um,
If you were a forum, how would you tag it?
if I had a dating profile, what are the top keywords? No, I don't know.
Long walks on the beach.
I feel like, you know, I I would almost say socialist, but I feel like there's a lot of things about like democratic
Yeah, I
socialism,
was gonna ask if you
which
play
is
the Bernie Sanders social democrat card.
no, because I think it's like really complicated,
Hmm.
right? I guess I focus a lot of time and effort on more like localized and like California sphere politics. I have a deep skepticism of the state and like federal government, but I'm also not like a free market
Hmm.
libertarian because I think that markets are like a made up fiction that everyone agreed upon
Hmm.
and like also that narrative doesn't benefit people. So I guess maybe like anarcho-socialist. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Neat.
Um, yeah. So yeah, all those labels, like, yeah, queer, feminist, all those things.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So like you you work for let me check my notes here. Uh, uh Logic School. Uh
Yes.
yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Notes. Good job. Uh, how would you say that the kind of like would you say that there is like some sort of interaction between like your motivations in doing like Logic School and like uh are you an editor for the zine?
I do creative direction, so I curate the art that goes
Mm.
in as well as like design stuff.
So how do you kind of
Yeah.
like choose which things to highlight, to focus on?
Um, quite honestly, I mean, this sounds bad, but I'm kind of a lazy creative director,
Oh.
so it's just like artists who are like friends and acquaintances, and within like this sphere of like creative art tech
Hmm.
stuff. The last issue we had this amazing artist, Romy Morrison, who their work was looking at the idea of fugitivity, blackness, and computation, and black computation, like, these freedom quilts that historically were ways that people like embedded these secret messages of like getting towards
Uh-huh.
freedom during the Underground Railroad. So Romy, their work is like kind of building on top of that legacy and thinking about and like inserting computational elements. So they literally like made a quilt and turned it into a speaker.
Hmm.
And
Oh,
the speaker
like
was
a
like
speaker that you can
some
like plug into stuff?
like a speaker, yeah, so like there was noise coming out of it
Uh-huh.
because the speaker is just like a piece of, I mean, it's not just this, but it is part of it is like the piece of
Yeah, yeah.
fabric that like vibrates and transmits sound, right? Yeah, so they like basically turned it into that and was expanding upon like this like black feminist theory and
Hmm.
practice. But yeah, so like stuff like that. And then another friend of mine, Tiare, she makes these like elaborate garments using algae to turn it into bioplastics.
Hmm.
And she's like she's Native Hawaiian and kind of like tapping into a lot of like indigenous thought and like Hawaiian like ecological thinking.
Hmm.
So yeah, we also featured her
Was that a
work. But
writing
yeah,
or like a specific art piece?
it was a specific. Well, it was a series of art
Hmm.
pieces. So like she has like one set of photography that's almost like a fashion shoot,
Hmm.
but it's with these bioplastic garments. It's really striking and fascinating.
Should notify Lady Gaga so she just doesn't have to wear meat.
It's funny. I feel like Tiara is like really good at production, and so when I looked at the piece, I was like, you know what, this kind of looks like Lady Gaga. Like, yeah, I don't know, it's very striking. Yeah, but yeah, that's I guess those are one of. I do a lot of random things. Those are the more exciting things that I get to work on.
Mhm. Do you also like simultaneously? Are you like working on like writing anything else, or is there anything that's any projects that you're kind of engrossing yourself in?
Um, okay, I am gonna brag for a
Go for it.
second. I don't like talking. Hold on, I gotta get this
All right.
magazine.
Oh no, she's gonna brag.
Okay, so I just finished a piece for this British magazine called Tank, and I think it might be the coolest magazine that I'll ever get to write for.
Uh-huh.
Um, and yeah, it just like it has both like fashion spreads, but then I wrote a piece for this, and like other people include like Byung-Chul Han, who's this
Hmm.
theorist who lives in Berlin, and then Lauren Euler, who just came out with a book called Fake Accounts.
Hmm.
It's like a novel that makes fun of like social media. And I wrote a piece for it, which is kind of like a personal piece about my mom and this mythology of the hardworking
Hmm.
immigrant and the like settler colonial state in the
You're like
US.
referring specifically
So,
to like the Chinese or to Asians? Because
I would
I know a lot
say
about like the whole model minority bullshit.
It's actually, I think, more it's tied into like the U.S. immigration policy more
Hmm.
generally. When people are like, when the strangeness of it, which is like the people who have power over immigration. It's this government that's a settler government, right? And since the founding of the US, immigration policy has always been based on labor. So like, oh, we need Chinese people to work on the railroads, we'll let them in. Oh, okay, like we need like these Irish people to like work on stuff, we'll let them in. And just continuously like, you know, this idea of like, okay, we'll let you in if you like work, right? And work hard as an immigrant. And so I think tied into just stuff around like racial capitalism and how a lot of the immigration laws were really started to be put into place also after the end of chattel slavery in the U.S.
Shadow slavery?
So chattel.
Oh, chattel slavery.
Sorry.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Shadow slavery.
No. Unfortunately, it was very much in people's faces. Yeah. Yeah. Not shadow. Yeah. But yeah, so that's the piece. And yeah, so it's like a cool, I don't know. It's like cool to get to write for a magazine that you're like, there's also fashion stuff in here. Yeah.
You should write for the non-zine whenever the next one rears its ugly head.
Yeah, it's very impressive. The first issue.
Non-spiracy?
The conspiracy. Yeah.
Yeah, the theming behind it is pretty neat. So I mentioned like I did editing for it. I really love like the range of like the take on conspiracy. Like there's one that's just like it's super like academically informed. There's one that's much more like spooky, boogeyman-y. One is just like about Pixar and the conspiracy of like, you know, kind of lulling you into thinking that you're, oh, I'm just enjoying this black themed movie. Well, how could I be contributing to anything nefarious?
Well, you're always contributing under capitalism.
Yeah, man. And if you don't contribute, you die.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, or you're like one of those like white people who are like, I'm rich now, I live in the woods.
You watched the movie Hush?
No, what is that?
It's like this there's this author chick, she's deaf. And she had like a successful book, and she's living in like the forest kind of by herself. She has a friend who visits every once in a while. But then like there's this murderer who like comes through, and he kind of catches on that she's deaf, and the entire movie is like you kind of like seeing this guy like in the background like doing a bunch of stuff, like trying to like sneak around the house and just kind of like mentally torturing her. It's a pretty good movie. A pretty good like horror suspense. I love these movies that like focus a lot around like sense. So there's one like there's this veteran, like they break into this veteran's house, and he's completely blind, but he's like military trained, and he knows his way everywhere around this house. And so like the entire time they're trying to like not make any noises. They're trying to, and so it plays very well with like the horror suspense, just because like the entire time like you're watching the movie like,
oh god,
those are awesome. To me, like that in a way that's like engaging the audience in a way that's like pretty unique. There's the movie written by the guy who played Jim in The Office.
Was it like Quiet Place?
Yeah. And then Bird Box, where it's also around like you're not supposed to like they have to like go around with blindfolds. A lot of these like thought experiments of like surrendering one of your senses, or like one of the things that like allow you to feel comfort in a place. I think those are pretty unique.
Do you watch a lot of horror thriller movies?
I've watched far fewer in recent years, but I mean I've always enjoyed them. I wouldn't say I'm like a horror movie person, but you know, I definitely like my good like mind fucks. I need to watch more like Black Mirror. There's a lot of the tech mind fucks.
I accidentally started listening to this like audio, not like series, I think produced by Apple that my friend posted about, and the like graphic design for it was like really like it's called Calls. Um, it's like really like, you know, graphic design is like very like LA, like gradients, fun. And so I thought that was what the series was like. It's not. It's I think you might like it. It's very Black Mirror-esque, like sort of like sci-fi, horror, suspense.
Calls, you said?
Yeah, it's really good. And like the first one I like listened to and then I could not go to sleep because it was so terrifying. Because the first one, the premise of it is like two people are in a long distance relationship. They're breaking up, and it's all the audio of this like, you know, them talking, and then in the background shit starts happening and you're like, ah. Yeah.
I need to be more like a better host in like actually take recommendations from and like actually follow through on recommendations from the guests, because the last few podcasts I'm always being recommended books, and just like I want to learn how to like speed read, just because I have this issue of like I just can't maintain my attention just reading like blocks of text for too long.
That's real. Do you ever do the audiobooks and just
You know, I've gotten recommendations for it. I honestly probably should try it. But yeah, I need to like watch some of these movies. I need to read more of these books. Like I studied literature in college, despite hating reading.
Yeah, wait a second.
To me,
Maybe you read too much.
no, to me it was more about the discourse and like discussing plot and stories and like symbolism and shit. But I just hated I hate the exercise of having to read. But I read like manga and stuff. But I like pictures.
No, I think the graphic novel is like a very like it's a wonderful genre.
Yeah, but there's like actual awesome stories that authors are produce that despite having like it shouldn't be like not told just because my attention span doesn't allow for things without pictures.
Audiobooks.
There are no pictures for that.
That's true. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that I'm of the mindset that I think that the written word is also, I feel like we do too much like disciplining around like making reading like
Mandatory.
the soul. Yeah, yeah. Because there's so many other ways to learn things, and like there's this whole like other, I feel like really important decolonial form of thought, which is like, yeah, like we're all like thinking these important thoughts and like all have like our theories of like race, class, gender, right? It's just not necessarily like in a book. And yeah.
It always circles back to post-colonialism with you, doesn't it?
Oh no. Oh God, I'll find something else to talk
No, that's
about.
cool. I was actually curious. I don't know if I discussed this with Amanda a few weeks ago. It sticks in my mind, but I talk about like a lot of weird shit with people, so I honestly don't remember. But like kind of the discussion about well, one like Puerto Rico, DC, Guam. Should they be states? What is like the proper improperly decolonializing the like the states and, you know, more the rest of the world, but I guess like still like let's keep it more focused to the states. Like what kind of autonomous rights should these places have, or should they be like, do they kind of need to stay within the larger country in order to maintain relevance?
Well, I feel like it's not really for us to decide, right? I think so much of it is like an importance on the self-determination of communities who live in those areas. And I mean, I think there are like theorists who would go so far to say that like the nation state is also like a form of colonial
Mhm.
imagination, right?
Yeah,
Like,
that's another thing. Does the United States still need to be united? Um, like, is that the ideal way of us kind of like making things the best way, the best in the most optimal way, or uh,
yeah, yeah.
like
I
every
mean,
3 or 4 years, Texas threatens to secede. Like, should we fucking let them? I don't know.
or
I think
like
yeah,
California.
Trump. Well, with Trump, California tried to secede.
Yep, yep. Um, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I honestly am just maybe it's the anarcho-socialist
Mhm.
in me, where I'm just like, yeah, sure. Like if California was like we're seceding, I'd be like,
I mean,
yeah,
they would
let's
still
do
have
it.
like, is it like the fifth or the sixth strongest economy in the world by themselves?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we have Hollywood and Silicon Valley, so um, and all the agriculture,
Hmm.
so we're set. Um, but yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
Um, well, I think the that Guam and Puerto Rico should be given proper statehood. Same thing with DC. I think. What else is there? There's the U.S. Virgin Islands. Um, so like Puerto Rico, especially just because like they're taken advantage of so heavily by uh like their tax laws are specifically used so that, like they can't get out of bankruptcy, they can't get out of loans and stuff, which is a thing that's
Mm,
specific to them. Um,
yeah.
but at the same time, like I really don't know like what it's a big thing that like the U.S. is this like huge united chunk of the world, uh, but I don't know what gives that more unique value than all of the countries in Europe still being their own independent countries, having their own elected leaders, having their own different laws and policies, but also still following the rules of the United Nations, or not United Nations, of the EU.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I guess the real strength is just economic power in like being united. But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, should there be like where would you land on like globalism? Just because you know as the world becomes more economically universally integrated, the need for individual banking systems and stuff kind of melts away.
Are you trying to convince me that we should all be using Bitcoin?
Probably not
No, I'm just
probably
kidding.
not Bitcoin.
I'm just teasing. I mean, I think part of it is like we have to be, I mean, and you know this, you did poli sci, like is
No, I
also
did
being
economics,
specific.
and literature, which I might as
Economics,
well have done
yeah.
poli sci. Well, I mean, why not?
Like, wait, isn't poli sci just theory plus economy smooshed
Yeah,
together?
probably.
But I mean, I think like these words like globalism or globalization, I think like it is the imperial way of framing a set of power relations in the world that creates this interconnectedness, but it is not like an equitable or even interconnectedness, right? It's like, you know, America being part of globalization is very different than like Indonesia being part of it. And I think some would argue that's just like globalization is just a force in which the US can like extract from a greater expanse of the world, in a way that's not with invading armies, but just with like WTO,
Yeah,
and
and like economic
free trade.
influence.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I mean, I like I feel like it is like this big question to answer, but I'm also just like everything should just be free.
Do you believe in either universal basic income or just a world like that does away entirely with like currency, just as we like increasingly become more efficient and more productive. You know, the need for there to be labor, like mandatory labor and like having currency to make transactions, that can also kind of go away in some like theory sets. I'm curious as to where do you think that's plausible? Do you think that's a too idealist?
Yeah. I mean, it's a tough question to answer, right? Because it's like in many ways like our work is becoming more automated
Mm-hmm.
and productive in the US, but it still relies on a set of like a new set of labor practices which still is intertwined with the human,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like content moderators located across the global south, people making like training data for AI and things like
Mm-hmm.
that, right? But that's just like invisibilized. And I think like it's, I think a model would be like maybe community based forms of like economic thinking,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, yeah, maybe like the community in Venezuela that's like working a ton for Crowdflower, making training data for Facebook, like they want currency to still exist and they want some kind of like ec- economic
Mm-hmm.
institutions, right? And so what's the equitable answer for them to create this like set of like, I mean, relationships across this
Mm-hmm.
like information supply chain, right? But then maybe it's like you're in Oakland, California, which has extremely high income disparity,
Mm-hmm.
and the question becomes like, you know, access to services, and maybe our community wants like just more free
Mm-hmm.
services, and yeah, so I don't know. I think the imposition of anything universal, I'm always a little bit skeptical
Mm-hmm.
of, because I think it is like a position that is very flattening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. What do you
I
think?
would say like the one of like the core starting points that needs to like happen in the States, and then by extension kind of like move over to every other place that has uh a democracy slash pseudo democracy, is changing the way that campaigns are funded and getting the influence like for like of businesses just paying politicians to make decisions that affect how much they're being regulated. Like
Mm,
that needs to be switched to like a social or like a public funding system, to
mm,
because so much of like the international relation uh, scheme of the world is dependent on is trade and being and like companies being able to send to get cheaper labor forces or get cheaper materials from certain places, because like so much of the international relationship is based on the economic growth. And then they're also making the decision by paying politicians, they're able to make decisions that change what they're able to do and like make things easier for them just to make more money. I feel like that is
mm.
like the one of the most corrupting factors in the uh international like trade.
Mhm. Mhm. How do you feel about international trade? Or like, I don't know. How do you feel about like this whole free market thing?
um we should I feel like economic sanctions are like that's definitely probably the most important thing the United Nations does, but then at the same time, you know, they're willing to overlook human rights violations because, we need money, and facilitating trade is like the most important thing to them. uh was it like the G7 that they want to like re-invite Russia despite the
Mhm.
fact that they're still waging a war in Ukraine? um
Mhm.
America is still like funding the Saudi genocide of in Yemen,
Mhm.
and that
Mhm.
shit should all be sanctioned. Fuck that. Like why are we allowed to do that aside from just give us more money? Um, and
Yeah.
like a lot of these things are still funded like a lot of so many people in government are funded by arms manufacturers and
Mm-hmm.
oil and non-renewable resource uh, energy producers. And this is also coming at the cost of like proper development of newer technologies that actually make things better for more people.
Yeah.
Um, there certainly needs to be like a transition away from the emphasis, the focus of government being from facilitating economic success of specific businesses rather than, and it needs to move towards actually just benefiting people's lives, because like increasing education, increasing like extending social safety nets so that people can get back into the labor force or be doing something that they would be happier with or be more productive or more creative. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that also makes the market stronger. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not as big a fan of like the whole free market thing, because in a free market you can buy other people's votes, you can buy influence, and
Mm-hmm.
like you can very much like collect all of like the wealth into just like a few people, which is what is happening right now
Mm-hmm.
with so many billionaires.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
Yeah, I feel like as you were talking, like I was like something that's like I'm reminded of is just like how so much of this like is propelled by like the US like weird like the US dollar being like the currency of the world, but actually
Mhm.
having like no real like value, except the value is like, well, it's enforced by the US military.
Well, it's more, isn't it still the petrodollar? Like the fact that the reason we're still essentially funding Saudi Arabia
Hmm.
in everything that they're doing
Hmm.
is because we want like all like the world's oil trades to be denominated in the U.S. dollar.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
like the military, I guess it's kind of like a scary force, but that's not. I don't think that's the prime engine for keeping people using the dollar.
Yeah. Well, I think the military force in terms of like when other countries like take out loans
Hmm.
uh in and like have to pay them back to, I mean, essentially the US, but like the IMF. And it's like,
Hmm.
oh, you're not going to pay us back. Like we have the US as a military. But yeah, I guess the petrodollar also being tied into like just like yeah, like the war machine
Yeah,
uses a
man.
lot of oil. I don't know. I feel now I'm just self-conscious that I'm like, oh my God, we sound like Berkeley conspiracy people.
Berkeley's a good
I do.
school. I
You don't.
don't know.
I do. You don't.
Where did you study?
I went to Harvard undergrad.
Hmm.
Yeah.
For political science, for writing, for
Is this wacky program called Visual and Environmental Studies,
ah,
which is a program that actually doesn't exist anymore.
so how much is that
And
degree still worth?
I know. Um, but yeah, it was like sort of like ecology, built environment, just thinking about like, I mean, thinking about like these broader systems like political economy, but like through like the physical world around us, right?
Hmm.
So like a little bit less
As
like
opposed
theory
as
heavy
opposed to like through the Matrix.
as opposed to through the Matrix, which is top movie. Yes. Um, but yeah, that's what I did and did not do well in school. Failed a class. Almost failed two
Was it like a
classes.
work ethic thing?
Um, I think one of the things that always happens with like, I mean, it was also a long time ago, right?
Mhm,
I entered undergrad in 2004.
mhm,
And at the time, I mean, Harvard is less so this way, but it was extremely like classed, right?
mhm,
You would have like this like South African, like white South African rich person on the rowing team, like in the same writing class as you. And there was no discussion of like how like these dynamics worked out. And I was actually talking with a classmate of mine the other day, and she and I were trying to tell this other person like what it's like going to Harvard if you're not rich in 2004. And there was this thing called dorm crew where we were on, and it was a way of doing work study if you needed it. And we literally cleaned our classmates' bathrooms. Which is really awkward because you're like a freshman and you like go to your like, you know, the juniors dorm and you knock on their door and you're like, hi, I'm here to clean your bathroom. And you literally cleaned their toilets.
Did the individual dorms have like their own bathrooms? Were they like apartments?
So the like after your freshman year, you moved into these houses like Harry Potter style. There was like a sorting hat day.
The fat lady singing.
Yeah, all that shit. And then these houses that you would go into, and as you moved up, like, you know, you would maybe have like two or three roommates, depending, but like it would be an apartment, right, that had its own bathroom.
That's cool.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it was super cushy and nice, but also really awkward if you were like cleaning your classmates.
How does Harvard do in terms of like extracurricular like student organizations and stuff? I imagine there's a lot of like really good competitive ones, but I'm curious about the like, you know, otherwise like social things like Milana or LGBT support.
That's also when I was there. They've also, I think they don't do dorm crew anymore. But also I think they don't do this process anymore. So when I was there, it was this very like problematic process. It was called the comp process. So, you know, for example, I got there, I like loved punk music at the time and wanted to do the radio station, but you couldn't just join the radio station. You had to literally take a multiple choice short answer test that was administered by the like juniors and seniors in the radio station to see if you were eligible to even do the comp process. And then the comp process was like a couple months of like, I mean, kind of apprenticing, but you had to prove that you like had social capital and were cool enough to join. And it was just like deeply problematic.
And this is just a student org?
Yeah, it's just a student org. There was like all this like bullshit, like sexual harassment, all this stuff. Like it was really bad territory. I think they're trying to phase a lot of the orgs that like it's different now because it's been like, you know, like 15 years since then, and they've really changed it up. But yeah, it was super problematic. So yeah, and also there's a lot more new orgs now, just because there's increased diversity at Harvard.
Yay, diversity.
I mean, for all that we say about diversity and complain about it and joke about it, I think it's like, at least it's like challenging bullshit things like that. Yeah, so I don't know. That was my undergrad, and that's why I failed failed one class. The other class that I almost failed, the professor, who is this white dude, he accused me of plagiarism. It was a writing class. I like hope that he remembers me and saw me in the New York Times. That's my
It's like a picture of you in the New York Times.
Yeah, basically. He almost failed me, and I had to like send him all the sources that I cited for this paper so that he could be sure that I wasn't like copying things from my sources.
What grounds did he have for like thinking that you were plagiarizing?
Like I guess he was like, this paper is unusually good. That's fucked.
Yeah, that's pretty fucked.
Yeah, I was like, I speak English. Anyways, yeah, that was That was a scene. Yeah. It sounds like you went to undergrad in both a more progressive place and a more progressive times.
I would say more progressive times. I mean, there was still a lot of the bullshit. There was like the N-word spray painted on like the campus somewhere.
Oh God.
Um, like there were regularly like issues of like different religious groups tearing down other people's posters. There's a lot of that shit. Um, so I went to Illinois Wesleyan. It's a Methodist school like historically, but they don't require anything. I was actually part of a. I think it's more that I just kind of like surrounded myself with like probably by accident, but I surrounded myself with more of the people who were kind of regularly engaged in a lot of like the discussions around diversity and intersectionality.
Yeah.
I had the coolest work study job title. It was still paying minimum wage, but the position was called multi-faith ambassador.
Mm.
Yeah, and it was a like supporting. It was a campus job that worked under the chapel and the chaplain. But like it was about facilitating discussion between different religious organizations, for facilitating events, and then also discussion within this like this group that was called Religiosity, and it was just like a tea meet where everybody's just like from
Oh, that's so
different
cute.
religious groups. So we had like atheists, Christians of different denominations, a few Muslims, like two or three Hindu people. We had like a Wiccan chick. There was somebody who was a Satru. It was pretty interesting.
Are you religious?
No, I'm very anti-religious actually.
All right, cool.
Yeah, I am against the notion of God and the possibility of him.
Are you spiritual?
I'm very much against like having a spirit. I think if I have a soul, it's like black and fucked as shit. I don't know. I've got like a firm. I have like this thing that I sometimes kind of get in trouble with explaining to people. The fact that like we are in most cases, in pretty much all cases, mathematically impossible to exist. The sense that we are all in any given place at any given time after like the random explosion that happened in like the Big Bang, on a planet that's inhabitable, that had like so many different like trillions of random interactions that ended up bringing us to where we are now, they're all just mathematically impossible. Like the probability of it happening in a way that resulted in the way we are, like where we are here at this one at any given point at any given time, is just so minuscule and impossible that we all functionally don't exist. Like I explained this to this one dude while drinking, and the next day I went into work, and he looked over at our coworker. He's like, "Hey Mike, do I exist?" Robin says I don't exist. Can you tell me whether or not I exist? I was just like, I wish I didn't talk with you.
Oh my God, that's real. Wait, so then what keeps you going?
Stubbornness and the God complex, honestly.
Wait, but you're also anti-God,
Yeah.
so do you feel like you're fighting
There's
yourself?
very much a lot of self-loathing that's built into it. I go to therapy. I have therapy tomorrow, actually. Uh, but I mean, I don't know. I think a lot of the value in existence, regardless of how plausible or probable that existence is just like the agency to make decisions that, or for either in your interest or to sabotage somebody else. Like, it makes things interesting, and the ability to, you know, influence the world around you and just your perception of it. There's a lot of fun to be had, and a lot of like happiness to be gained, and a lot of chaos to be sown. I don't know.
What about
It's pretty nihilistic, honestly.
I don't know if I would categorize it as nihilistic, but like, what about decisions that are like the in between, right? Like you were saying that you learned the song for your wife.
I
Like,
mean, I think it's important to, as an individual, value, do things that you value, make things that you value, uh, you know,
but it sounds like she values it too.
yeah, and like,
Or you did it knowing that she would value it.
I did it knowing that she would value it, and like I value her, and I like making her happy, and like I choose to decide, I choose to have that have meaning to me, despite knowing that like mathematically I am probably, I either don't exist, and if I do exist, I'm also still infinitesimally small in the grand scheme of the universe, that like it probably doesn't matter, but I can,
Mm-hmm.
as an individual, still choose to say that it matters to me,
Mm.
regardless of whether or
Mm-hmm.
not it matters to the universe.
Mm-hmm.
I have like this grand cosmic like philosophy of we are the universe's like in being sentient and being a curious a curious species. We are the universe's best attempt right now at explaining itself to itself, because
Mm-hmm.
otherwise all of like the random action without sentience is just striving to evolve to get to the point where where the universe can influence and change things in a way that is more meaningful rather than random and chaotic.
Wait, it does sound like you're spiritual.
No,
I mean, in the sense that like you have a cosmology.
that sounds like astronomy to me, and I also don't really believe in that. Like, I don't know.
Wait, you mean astrology,
Astrology,
not
yeah, yeah.
astronomy.
No, no,
I was
I
like,
don't believe in physics. As God, I think that shit's bullshit.
um, yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, I guess when I say spirituality, I just mean like a general vibe around for yourself around the way that you are in the world.
I
And
would say that I have like a philosophy of life. Um, but I've got a very like sorted relationship with spirituality and faith. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a priest. Um, and it was specifically because I didn't want to get married to a girl because girls are gross.
wait, were you raised
Yeah,
religious?
I mean my parents are Filipino. My family's Filipino.
Are you Catholic?
Yeah, we were born into Catholicism. I have rejected it since like high school.
Oh my God, that's like a heavy religion to be raised.
Yeah, man. The one of the few books that I like read of my own volition all the way through was the Bible. Um, that tells you anything about why I'm also so jaded about a lot of things.
Yeah, the Bible, it's like I was reading like the Sodom and Gomorrah section. I was like,
Good
wow,
section.
this is
Butt sex.
this is it was like a Netflix for ancient people.
Yeah, it's a pretty unpleasant book, and it hurts
So,
if you it's very good in like a religious text fight. It's a heavy book. I mean, you're probably gonna lose any fight to anybody who's got the Gita on hand, but like it's pretty hefty.
yeah. Yeah, it's like very much like there's a lot in it and a lot of guilt and stuff, and then you read other texts, religious texts like I don't know, the Rig Veda or like,
Mhm.
the Lotus Sutra, and you're like, this is
This is nice.
very different vibes.
This is chill. Can I have whatever this guy had?
Exactly. Instead of like, and then this brother died, and the other brother married the brother's
Yeah,
wife and other wives.
and he blinded himself like after having sex with his daughter because she was.
Yep. Oh my God, it's crazy how many times that happens in the Bible too.
Yeah,
You're like, how do you? Or also when they're like, you can lay with my daughter. It's like, what?
I was I've been rewatching Yeah, do you know Bo Burnham?
Mm-mm.
Comedian, rapper. He's he's got a. You should look it up. It's on YouTube. It's he put out this one special for free, and it's just like one of like the most well thought out, well executed comedic specials I've seen.
Mm.
It's like really profoundly like sentimental, but at the same time, really like it plays to it makes a lot of fun of the idea of like being in the comedy business, being in show business, being
Mm.
being this icon to little girls and to little boys, having all these like different internal conflicts, but it's like it plays off as just as funny and quirky, but it is also just like uniquely profound and like sentimental. The in like the huge sea of jaded nihilism, there's also like we are the ones who make things matter, and
Mm.
like the money can sway you in so many different ways, but
Mm-hmm.
this is how I am trying my best to kind of rectify that dissonance within myself. It's a
Mm-hmm.
super good special. It's an hour long if you ever get the
Mm.
time. Called What?
I'll, I'll check it
Yeah.
out. Yeah, I very much I feel like so much of my time is spent on like dumb serious stuff, and I need like serious funny stuff to
Yeah,
balance
it's
it
very
out.
like serious funny. It's,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it give you like the quick giggle, but there's just like so much that he's produced. He's got this one song called "Art Is Dead." He plays piano. His big thing, he like plays piano and then like has a lot of like quirky lyrics. But a lot of the comedy show whereas like a Chappelle or like Joe Rogan, they riff off of just like telling stories. Um, Bo Burnham has made it into like uh, a full staged choreographed act
Mm.
with like so many different like set pieces and musical tie-ins that like that make it really well constructed. It's to me at the same time like excellently executed theater while it's still a comedy
Mm.
show, and
Mm.
I don't know,
Mm.
it's just really impressive. I don't know.
Hmm. I will definitely check it out.
I'm Bo, yo. I'm the greatest rapper ever, whether you think I'm better or not. It's funky too. It's
Have you
cool.
ever have you ever attempted to kickstart a rapping career?
No,
Wait, because you grew up in
the
Chicago. Did
suburb of
y'all grow
Chicago.
up in the suburb of
Yeah.
Chicago? Yeah.
I grew up in the suburban ghetto of Glendale Heights.
What was that like?
It was weird. Like, there were like I was in an area that had middle upper like minorities. So there were a lot of Indians, a lot of Asians,
Mm.
a couple black families, but we were also like in the midst of like lower middle class white people, some black people. There were like there were wannabe gangbangers. There were a lot of like just wannabe punks. And like when in middle school, I went to like a private Catholic school. There was already a weird mix. We had a Sikh and a Muslim girl in the in our classes, and I just like never thought about it. And then like in high school, when I was like almost completely surrounded by, there were some people who came from like the public school in my area,
Mm.
and we went to this school that was in like a middle upper white neighborhood, and
Mm.
all of the advanced classes, all of like the higher math and like the advanced like reading classes, English classes,
Mm.
those were all populated but specifically by like just lots of white kids, and all of the
Mm.
kids that like looked closer to me were in like the dumber kids classes.
Mm.
And like that's where I started getting more of like the mental like I'm not sure where I fit here.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was very strange. But like I tried to participate in like as many different like club activities. I did chess club. I did like model
Cute.
United Nations. No, I did chess partly as a joke because I played baseball and I also for a year did the track team. I wanted to say I was a three-sport athlete, uh, but I wasn't good enough for basketball, so I went with chess. I did all right. Um, also did theater, and I didn't like fit in with the theater kids, despite also kind of being a bit of a weirdo. It was a different class of weirdo that I didn't feel comfortable with. Uh,
Yeah, high school theater kids are
yeah.
strange. They're also always hooking up with each other,
Same thing with
at
like
least at
bandies,
my school.
bandies and theater kids.
Yes. Oh my God. And it was always like,
And I was in band and theater because I like to spread my I like to spread out a bit. But yeah, I didn't want to
mhm.
be in any of these like cliques because there's just like people are so fucking weird and gross and
They're always like so and so broke up with so and so, and they're like making out on the like band
getting a
trip, and
hand
you're
job
just like,
in the hot tub.
yes. Yes, it was always weird, and like the setting was like very American Pie.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
Except I
Huh.
didn't go like to parties. I was very much not cool. Uh, it wasn't until college where I
Wait,
started like going out and drinking, hanging out with people outside of school. But no, I didn't get like invited to shit. Mostly because I was also kind of a snob.
what about like your siblings? Like, I feel like I've met your sisters or two of your
Yeah, yeah.
sisters, and I'm just like, wow, y'all are like cool.
They definitely got they were much more popular than I was in high school. So they had I was the weird lead-in for the rest of them to kind of take over the school. They
Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
they all the teachers knew me. They knew that I was like a pretty good student. They knew I was weird. But in like being weird, it kind of like paved the way for them to, be less weird and therefore way better. Uh like they were weird, but like I don't know. I think I just set the bar so incredibly low for like, oh, just please don't be this fucking weird. Uh, and they were
Wait, but your brother wasn't
no. My brother
weird.
went to a different high school. He
Oh,
went to a private high school, but it closed down his after his senior year. Um, and it was just like really expensive, so we ended up going to the public school. But
yeah.
yeah, I was I was very much the like a really gross foot in the door, I'd say.
You turned out all right. Look at
I
you
think I
now.
turned out pretty okay.
Yeah,
Again,
you live in Ukraine, you have a cool dog.
I got a beautiful wife. I've got like a decent place. I made a new computer and I play video games and I get to chat with people. I, don't know.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
to think
That's
I like to
a
think I have cool conversations sometimes.
I mean, this is a very cool conversation. So, there you go.
What about you with
Um,
your sister? What's younger sister? I take it.
yeah,
Hmm.
younger. Yeah, she's like 6 years younger, and she's very different. She lives in New
Hmm.
York, has like a studio apartment
She work
and
around crypto or
works.
anything?
No, she works for Accenture, the consulting company,
Hmm.
as like a senior digital marketing manager or something. Yeah, so she is very much both anti-capitalist but deeply capitalist. Like she sent me a photo of this project that she's working on, like for
Hmm.
Salesforce the other day. It was like from a slide deck, and it was like, as capitalists, we know that the former version of capitalism is dead. We're ready to build the new one.
Hmm.
It was like very earnest too, right? So
It's like being baked into a
that's her
cake
job.
and like screaming at the top of your lungs, "Fuck pastries."
Exactly. Yep. So yeah, it's weird. It would be cool if she worked in crypto. I don't
I mean,
know.
it's very much a weird thing, like especially with like fintech and stuff. You're like the idea is making a more functional, a more equitable economic, but at the same time still be like an economic vehicle for trade and because the world still people still need goods, people still need services, people still need to be able to like make investments both like literally
Yeah.
for like financial assets but also just like in their life, investing for things. So, trying to work within the rule set of traditional finance, while at the same time trying to innovate in a way that's like, open source and supposed to benefit way more people and be way more accessible. It is really kind of funky to think about.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like that contradiction under like trying to do anything under capitalism, right? It's like, yeah, how much are you like propping up the system versus like creating like this different space for different set of like economics and politics to exist under and culture.
Is that why you kind of what you kind of like gravitate towards like for like art curation and organization?
I think for me, it's really about, I have a mentor who put it best, which is like, okay, well, if you're on the left, like, very broad strokes, like, are you revolution or abolition, right? And I think within like the space of like abolish everything, it's like, well, what are these other ways of being, living, being present in the world, creating these like life-sustaining infrastructures for communities, for my community that like may seem far off, but really do sustain life and joy in these important ways. And so I think it is like, it's by its nature like impossible to scale in the ways that top-down policymakers want it to scale. But I think it's also very important. Like, I just think of all the spaces like around here that are really just like, like my friend Tiara runs this amazing art gallery, but it's also really just like a beautiful sanctuary for like queer, BIPOC, trans folks in Oakland.
That's the thing I was always sorry to interrupt. It was the thing I was always wondering about. Is it BIPOC or BIPOC? Because like that's a term that's recently sprung up in the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's funny. I have mentors who are just like, oh my God, you kids, like
you and your terms.
Yeah, like, like POC wasn't enough for you. And then like, a lot of other older generation feminists I know, they like yell at me because they're like, they're not from the West. And in their countries, they're like, yeah, POC, like it would mean someone who's white.
Well, I think they would just mean minority then, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This is the way that it was explained to me by like some like Egyptian and Iranian feminists, that they had a lot of problems with like people of color side. But yeah, I don't know. So that's kind of, I feel like thinking about creating these spaces and nurturing these like spaces and infrastructures feel important. Yeah, now I can't remember what we were talking about.
Yeah, but I think this is one thing that always like frustrated me, in like both in college and just like since then, hearing people kind of like bitch about safe spaces. I mean, I guess like the outward facing, like just like the sound of safe space, it sounds like something to make fun of. But like it's very much just like it's a framework by which you're able to like talk about things comfortably, recognize that like if you're being disrespectful, that like we're trying to be respectful here.
Yeah,
it's really just kind of like a code of don't be a shitty person while we're trying to talk about things that matter to us.
Yeah,
and it's just been like made fun of so much by like by pundits, by comedians, by I don't know. But again, it's probably just like the marketing of a safe space. Fix it.
I think it's also that people are scared. I mean, I've definitely, I'm not one of those people who's like I definitely have like a range of people that I interact with, and especially when I was working in tech, I would have these conversations with like extremely wealthy white men, right? Because I went to Harvard undergrad, and a lot of those like rich white men who went there like went on to
Legacies
become,
and
went on to become richer. And so, when you interact with them, there's like a huge level of like insecurity and fear and
Mhm.
just like deep confusion. And the only path, I mean, I think also being aware of like we live in a society under all these systems, and
Mhm.
the society and systems really make it easy for us to like reproduce the stuff that we're born into, right? So these
Mhm.
like rich white men, they're like kind of like, okay, well, you are this way, so you have all this pressure now to like continue doing this thing, like
Mhm.
upholding patriarchy and white supremacy. Like that's going to be a lot easier than like going against the grain, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so there is like a lot of fear, insecurity, and so I could totally see them like they are going to hate on safe spaces because it's like for them it's like, oh well, I've operated against like, really forcing myself to do things that I didn't want to in order to succeed, and you're
Yeah.
telling
You,
me there's other places.
all you fucking snowflakes in your safe
Yep.
spaces.
Yep. Yep. It's deep bitterness. And
Mhm.
I mean, it's just sad.
Yeah. I don't know who coined it, but like the thing, the whole idea of like white fragility. Um,
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
like I'm
Yep.
also like regularly semi-conscious of this when I'm talking about like social issues with my wife. Like feminism, we're all good to
Mm-hmm.
go. But like when we start talking about minorities or like microaggressions or or privilege, it's always like on the mind. Like I'm trying to like not come across as I am like victimizing or I'm blaming you or attacking you and
Mm-hmm.
anything. Um, which is like weird to have to kind of self-regulate in that sense, but it's very much a real thing.
Oh, it's so hard. It's so hard. Yeah, I was my friend Shazita, and I like she's with this really great, really smart white man, and sometimes they get into arguments where she's like, no, this was just straight up racist,
Mm-hmm.
and he's like, nope, doesn't seem racist to me. And she's like, I can't even.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I don't know. Yeah, but I don't know, I mean, I guess, yeah, one of the things that came to mind too for me, so did you go back to the Philippines at all growing up?
It was only so I went there with like a really young kid, but I did go there as a teenager, and I've been there. I was there when I was 20 something. I
Mm-hmm.
stayed there for a month. Why do you ask?
Well, I'm always curious because this is something I always talk about with my Filipino friends, where it's like I feel like even within like the racial categories in the
Hmm.
US, like I feel like East Asian is like so specifically its own thing, and then
Or Pacific
like
Islanders.
yeah, like Pacific Islanders are like racialized in a
Hmm.
different way in the US, depending on where you live
I mean, there's
too.
always the stereotypes of like the Filipino prostitute or the Thai lady boys. Uh, I know those are pretty prominent ones in
Mm,
regards to like at least those two countries.
yeah.
And but like I think all of us like at least all the guys have to deal with like the Asian beta male syndrome.
Huh. Yeah, I feel like there's two. I was talking with a friend of mine, and she's in this like Filipina like chat circle, and within that too, there's like all this colorism
Hmm.
too,
Oh
because
yeah,
like
that.
there's always the super light skinned
Hmm.
person who like
The,
is like, "Are you mixed race?"
the really big thing like in China also though, like we will like shit on each other for like being slightly darker or like and like hold this virtue like having like bleached skin, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
people will actually apply bleach to make their skin whiter, and like that's terrifying to me.
Oh my God. Yep. 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 That was like in middle school, like my mom was so
Hmm.
concerned about it. She like gave me all this like lightening
Hmm.
cream, And now I'm like, I feel like I'm just like, I think my neck and my face still don't totally match as a result of it. And it's like really sad and embarrassing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
Yeah.
definitely a good thing that there are more of these discussions happening, I think, and like in like creating art galleries and like creating spaces that are kind of dedicated to like preserving and shedding light and giving exposure to like art and media and things that just that put the like what makes our identity significant, but it puts it at like the forefront, and it's like it's not something that you can hide or it's not something you can tokenize. Despite the fact that we try to
Mm-hmm.
tokenize everything.
Capitalism.
Crypto.
Oh. um, yeah, it's funny. I'm not gonna say anything about crypto.
Yeah, so we're approaching the end. Um,
Cool.
so yeah, so you put out blockchain chicken farm. Your zine, they publish 3 times a year, correct?
Yep, we publish 3 times a year, and all our content is free online.
Hmm.
Logicmag.io.
How do people submit? Do they just like reach out to you? Do they have what's like the scouting process for that?
So we do calls for pitches,
Where are the pitches at?
and we usually announce it on Twitter.
Where are the
What?
pitches at? Yeah,
Wow,
man.
wow, that's a whole new level of wordplay.
Where
I will definitely use that for a tweet.
nice. So any last words? Anything else that you want to kind of put out there into the ether?
Oh God.
Yes, yes.
Um,
Keep going.
wow. With that, I mean, I really have nothing to say. You did it.
All right. Thank you for being my guest today. We can stay on after like I technically stopped the recording, but
Okay, cool.
thank you for being my guest. Thank you for the wonderful conversation.
Thank you too. It was so much fun.
All right, and let's